Genghis Khan's legacy. The end of the Mongol Empire. Genghis Khan, born as Temujin around 1162, was one of history's most transformative leaders, creating an empire that stretched across much of Asia and parts of Europe. Under his leadership, the Mongol Empire became the largest contiguous land empire in history, fundamentally reshaping the political, cultural, and economic landscape of the 13th century. However, Genghis Khan's death in 1227 marked the beginning of a slow and gradual disintegration of the empire he had built, a process driven by internal divisions among his successors and the challenges of maintaining such a vast and diverse realm. His death and the subsequent fragmentation of the Mongol Empire reveals the complexities of succession, the limits of imperial unity, and the difficulties inherent in managing an empire built on military conquest. The rise of the Mongol Empire. The Mongol Empire was born from the unification of disparate nomadic tribes in the steppes of Central Asia. Genghis Khan, after a lifetime of struggle, warfare, and diplomacy, succeeded in bringing together these disparate groups under his leadership. His military innovations, including superior cavalry tactics, intelligence networks, and the use of psychological warfare, enabled him to conquer vast territories with remarkable speed. By 1206, after years of warfare, Genghis Khan had united the Mongol tribes and declared himself the supreme ruler, adopting the title Genghis Khan, which means universal ruler. Under Genghis Khan, the Mongols launched a series of highly successful campaigns that saw the conquest of the Khwarezmian Empire, the Jin dynasty in northern China, and much of Central Asia. His reign transformed the Mongols from a fragmented, semi-nomadic people into a powerful military force capable of subjugating empires. Along with his military prowess, Genghis Khan introduced legal reforms, promoted trade, and established a system of merit-based appointments, which helped create the administrative foundation for the vast empire. Genghis Khan's vision was clear. He sought to create a unified empire that was politically stable, economically prosperous, and militarily dominant. He also envisioned an empire based on loyalty to him rather than traditional tribal allegiances, which was critical to maintaining unity among his followers. Genghis Khan's death and the struggles of succession. Genghis Khan's death in 1227, likely due to injuries sustained during a campaign against the Western Xia, created a leadership vacuum that the Mongol Empire struggled to fill. Although Genghis Khan had established a clear hierarchy within the empire and had named his third son, Ogedei, as his successor, the transition of power was fraught with tension. Genghis Khan had many sons from various wives, and as the Mongol Empire was vast and diverse, with various tribal and regional allegiances, the question of succession was not straightforward. Despite Ogedei's official designation as the Great Khan, several of Genghis Khan's other sons, including Jebi, Chagatai, and Tolui, held significant power and sought to assert their influence. Tolui, as regent for the young Ogedei, who was not yet of age when Genghis Khan died, effectively controlled the empire during the early years after his father's death. However, this centralized power, which worked in the short term, eventually proved to be unsustainable. Furthermore, Genghis Khan's empire was divided into several large regions known as ulus, each governed by a different member of his family. These divisions created political fragmentation within the empire, even as the Mongols continued to conquer new territories. This division of power among Genghis Khan's heirs sowed the seeds for future conflicts. The division among his heirs. After Genghis Khan's death, the empire was divided among his sons and grandsons. Ogedei, the Great Khan, ruled over the core Mongol heartlands, but his brothers and their descendants controlled other territories, which were often far removed from the central authority of the Khan. This fragmentation began to undermine the cohesion that Genghis Khan had worked so hard to establish. One key factor contributing to the eventual division of the empire was the differing ambitions of Genghis Khan's heirs. While Ogedei and his successors, such as Kublai Khan, sought to consolidate power and maintain the unity of the empire, others like Ogedei and Chagatai pursued independent agendas, creating competing power bases that undermined imperial unity. For instance, the Chagatai Khanate in Central Asia became a largely autonomous entity, with its rulers focusing on maintaining control over their own territories rather than the broader imperial interests. The empire's sheer size also made it difficult to govern effectively. Communication and transportation were slow, and the vast distances between the Mongol holdings made it difficult for a central authority to enforce its will. The empire, instead of continuing as a unified whole, began to evolve into several loosely connected regions, each with its own leadership and priorities. The fall of the Mongol Empire. By the middle of the 13th century, the Mongol Empire was already beginning to fragment. The death of Ogedei Khan in 1241 sparked a series of succession struggles, and the central power of the Great Khan began to weaken. Meanwhile, the Mongol territories in the west, including the Ilkhanate in Persia, and east, the Yuan dynasty in China, were increasingly governed independently, with little coordination between them. The empire's fragmentation was further accelerated by the rise of powerful regional rulers, the changing political landscape, and the pressures of local rebellions. One of the most significant developments was the establishment of the Yuan dynasty in China by Kublai Khan in 1271, which marked the end of Mongol expansion and the beginning of a more Sinicized Mongol rule in China. The Yuan dynasty would eventually fall to the Ming dynasty in 1368, a clear indicator of the declining strength of the Mongol Empire. Meanwhile, in the west, the Ilkhanate crumbled after the death of its founder, Hulagu Khan, in 1265. Successive rulers struggled to maintain control over their vast territories, and by the 14th century, the Ilkhanate, like the rest of the Mongol domains, had splintered into smaller states, plagued by internal strife and external invasions. By the end of the 14th century, the Mongol Empire had fractured completely, with the various khanates, such as the Golden Horde, the Ilkhanate, the Chagatai Khanate, and the Yuan dynasty, functioning as independent states. The once mighty Mongol Empire had effectively ceased to exist as a unified political entity. Conclusion: Genghis Khan's death in 1227 marked the end of an era of Mongol conquest and central authority. His successors, despite their remarkable achievements, struggled to maintain the unity and vision of the empire he had built. The internal divisions among his heirs, compounded by the challenges of managing an empire of such vast size and diversity, led to the fragmentation of the Mongol Empire. Though the Mongols left an indelible mark on history through their military innovations, cultural exchanges, and empire building, the legacy of Genghis Khan's empire was one of fragmentation and decline rather than lasting unity.